This is a Sikh on Elul. And we're holding Yom Kippur. Now, why would I do that? If you were here last time, we did a class on why we don't blow shofar Erev Rosh Hashanah. And this whole idea, how are you really tricking the Satan question, which is just a great question. This is a class that has to do with Elul, specifically the first day of Elul. During Elul, we blow shofar. The first day of Rosh Chodesh Elul, which is actually the 30th day of Av, we don't blow shofar. But we practice. Yeah? Take it, you practice. And the Rebbe is very disturbed by this practice stuff. What does that mean, we practice? He's very curious about the meaning of the practice.
Wait, I tried to blow shofar and it's really hard. If you don't practice, you will not be able to.
That's a great answer, but you can practice the morning of Alav Elul before you go to shul. You have to practice the day before. Right? Or once you learn how to blow shofar, you don't have to practice anymore. Why is it necessary that there's a day in the calendar that's defined as practice day?
Sorry, what day is that?
The first day of Rosh Chodesh Elul, which is actually the 30th day of the month of Av. Now, what the Rebbe does in the Sikha, which is the reason we're learning it, is because the Rebbe links the shofar of practice on the first day of Elul to the shofar we're going to sound Yom Kippur at the end of Ne'ilah. He ties in that initial practice with the final and, so to speak, highest concept of shofar, which we blow at the end of Yom Kippur. And this is why we're learning it, because this is perfectly timed. We're a couple of days before Yom Kippur. It's quite appropriate that we should learn about the significance, the meaning of the sounding of the shofar we do on Yom Kippur. Now, what's going to happen is this. I'm going to discuss with you certain ideas orally as a lecture, and other parts, of course, we're going to read inside. As you've been told already, these classes at the moment are going to be one shot. You do a class in an hour, a lesson, and that's it. Every week a new class, with Hashem's help, of course. The Rebbe is very curious about what it means to learn in order to practice. And he brings a wonderful insight. The insight is that there's actually an argument in halacha when you start blowing shofar. Why is there an argument in halacha about when you start blowing shofar? The first day of Rosh Chodesh Elul or the second day of Rosh Chodesh Elul? Because there's an argument when Moshe Rabbeinu went up on Har Sinai for the third time. Moshe Rabbeinu was in the mountain 3 times. The last time was from Elul through Yom Kippur. When did he go up? The 30th day of Av or the first day in Elul? If he went up the 30th day in Av, we should blow shofar beginning that day. If he went up the first day of Elul, we should begin shofar blowing that day. Since the rabbis argue, so he came up with a great compromise. Start blowing the second day of Rosh Chodesh. The first day, quote, practice. Okay. It's a very, very interesting reason. But if the idea of blowing the third day is because we're not sure, the expression to practice is strange. It doesn't make sense. Why practice? Just simply say, you don't have to blow, but the custom is to blow. Let's all say, from the second day of Rosh Chodesh Elul, you have to blow shofar. The first Rosh Chodesh Elul, the custom is to blow. What's the expression? To practice. Li'islameh, to practice. That has a problem with that expression. And therefore, the Rebbe says, no, not a good enough reason. This initial reason that we blow shofar the first day of Rosh Chodesh Elul cannot be because it's based on an uncertainty when you're supposed to start blowing. Because then you wouldn't use the expression taken Li'islameh. It's got to have another reason. There's got to be something about the first day of Rosh Chodesh Elul that makes it special, that justifies blowing, but it's not really obligated, it's a practice. What that is, we'll find out later. But before the Rebbe continues, he moves on and asks a wonderful question. What do you do if the first day of Rosh Chodesh Elul is Shabbos? When do you practice? So, if you're practicing to practice, if the real reason you're blowing shofar the first day of Rosh Chodesh Elul is to practice, then you should have to practice on Friday. Because if you can't practice on the correct day, practice on the day before. As you yourself said before, if I tried to blow shofar, it's quite difficult. You don't practice, you can't do it. Has everybody ever found anybody that when the first day of Rosh Chodesh Elul is Shabbos, they practice on the Friday before? Nobody does it. Nobody does it. So exactly what is the significance and the meaning of this blowing on the first day of Rosh Chodesh Elul, which is not to reconcile a dispute about when we start blowing shofar. But there's something about the first day that warrants blowing shofar, and at the same time, if it's Shabbos, we don't bother. How do we resolve this? This is the issue the Rebbe has in the Sicha. And now I would like you to turn to page 96, where I put the number 3 on the margin of your page, near the bottom of the page. And here is the answer, girls. V'hine. To answer the question about understanding the significance of blowing shofar the first day of the month of Elul as a custom, which is called to practice, but it doesn't really mean to practice, because when it's Shabbos, you don't push it back to the day before. You have to understand the following. Al pi hayadua, there's a rule in Yiddishkeit that says, klal, uprat, uklal. I underline those 3 words. General, specific, general. Everything in Yiddishkeit follows a pattern. General, specific, general. You want an example? Faith, knowledge, faith. First thing you have to do is believe. The second thing you have to do is understand. And the third thing you have to do is believe in those things that you can't yet understand. Now think for a moment. Which faith is higher? The faith which comes before the reason, or the faith which comes after the reason? It depends what higher means. Because both have an advantage. When a little child believes, that's as close as he'll ever be to God. But it's so unsophisticated. Which means, in other words, when that child is going to encounter his Yetzer Hara, that faith is not going to be powerful enough to fight the Yetzer Hara. Even though it's so pure, but it's so untested. Correct? When a person first believes in the Eibishter and then struggles to understand what he could understand and recognizes he doesn't understand it completely, and then has a faith subsequent to that understanding, that second faith is empowered by the effort and the knowledge that he acquired in between faith A and faith B. So in a way, the second faith is far more meaningful, far more with teeth, if you will, than the first faith. Agreed? However, nobody can deny that nobody believes like a child. Both are true. In this concept of all detail and all, everything is one, broken down to deals at all. The first klal has an advantage over the second klal in its simplicity. The second klal has an advantage over the first klal in its depth. The child's faith is the purest thing. The adult's faith is the most powerful thing. So, whenever you have a system that begins simple, ends simple, and in between you have something sophisticated and complicated, there is an advantage in the initial simple and there's an advantage in the culminatory simple. Okay, let me give you a different example, though I'm not sure how to drive this home. When is a couple more in love? The day of their wedding or the last day of their lives? There's 2 sides to this coin. There is nothing like the wedding day. Why? Because you still have no idea what you're getting yourself into. But on the other hand, the whole model of sustainable love, the reason people can love each other forever, is because you start to learn that love means something so different than the love you felt on the day of your wedding, that comes only from living, and only from struggle, and only from having differences. But there's still something about the day of the wedding. Right? If you look at the Chassan HaMaimer, we have 2 versions of the Chassan HaMaimer, the previous Rebbe's version and our Rebbe's version. You know what the difference is? The previous Rebbe's version is pointing towards children, the end of a marriage. The Rebbe's version points towards the chuppah, the canopy. The day of your wedding, your entire life is represented in a microcosm. At the end of a couple's life together, their love is culminated again. Between those 2 events, there's life. The day of their marriage is a klal. The end of the life is a klal. In between there's prat. Which is greater? And the answer is they're different. Depends how you look at it. So the Rebbe says something absolutely mind-blowing. Mind-blowing. That shofar has the same pattern. Rosh Hashanah's shofar is not the highest thing. Elul shofar is not the highest thing. Yom Kippur shofar is the highest thing, and the shofar you're blowing on the first day of Elul, which is a custom and it's to practice, has a similarity to the shofar blowing of the end of Yom Kippur. That is creative. That's the idea that Rebbe is proposing here in the Sikh. And I want to read a little bit more inside where I was reading. On page 96, the last paragraph, please. The ksheim sheyeshne haklal shebo la'acharei hapratim. Just as we know that after you collect all the details, it all is nicely wound up, tied up, strung together into a lattice work, into a unity. Kach yeshne haklal shebo lifnei ukahagdama lahapratim. There is also how everything is together before you delved into the details and to the specifics. Says the Rebbe, Kain hu gam ben yanenu, this philosophy, this model applies to shofar as well. Shekeshem shel acharei prati amei hakel zeh Rosh Hashanah. After 100 sounds on Rosh Hashanah, and of course, the sounds of Rosh Hashanah are various. You blow a tkiya, then you blow a shvarim trua, then you blow a tkiya, then you blow another tkiya, then only a shvarim, and then another tkiya, then another tkiya, then only a trua. There's various sounds. And then, Bola haklal v'teichni haklal shel shofar. The end of it all is Yom Kippur. When you blow one single sound, last line on page 96, please. The same is also true, Bahaschalas mem hayomim, in the beginning of the 40 days. Shekedim ho'aveda beprate inyan tkiya shofar. You're going to blow shofar. For 30 days or 29 days, you're going to blow shofar 10 sounds. The Rosh Hashanah, you're going to blow shofar 100 sounds. Before all of this, third line from the top of page 97, tzarich liyas nekudas ha'haschala. There is a point that's an introduction, haklal shelifnei hapratim, the general which is before the details. Says the Rebbe Shaboy Mudgash, which underscores taichnam hakloli shalaprat maboy machakach, the general idea of the details which come after. You want an example for this, which would of course explain the word lehislamid? The first day a kid goes to school is the least meaningful day academically in his life. Agree or disagree? It's entertainment. It's hugs and kisses. It's don't be afraid. Your moral loves you. It's all kinds of flowery stuff. None of that. And yet, we make such a timus out of it. God forbid the kid becomes acclimated to school. We just put him on the bus. No big deal. What's the idea? The idea is that you invest a lot at the beginning. And then when you're going through the process, it's detailed, it's involved. When you graduate, you're going to make a celebration again. Rosh Chodesh Elul, the first day, is the chinuch of shofar. It's like the child going to school. It's not even a mitzvah. It's not even a law. It's a custom. It's practice. But invested in that is the vision of everything that's going to follow. If I may use alternative language, in Judaism there are two dimensions. There's Judaism and there is the Jew. In the reality of Judaism, there's an interplay, there is a meeting between Jew and Judaism. I am Jewish because of how I live. I am Jewish because I do, or I think, and I speak so many things which are part of Judaism, part of the Torah, and through living according to the Torah, I am a Yid. But ultimately, there are things that are not Judaism. They're just the Jew. The Jew is the simplest concept, and the Jew is the ultimate concept. In other words, Judaism is an interplay between a person and a lifestyle. But ultimately it's about the person, not about the lifestyle. And there is a moment at which the person no longer needs the lifestyle. He is the lifestyle. When is that moment? Yom Kippur. And you know what else that moment is? The first day of Rosh Chodesh Elul when he's practicing. This is not a mitzvah. It's not a halacha. This is you. You're a Jew, blow shofar. Why? Because I anticipate Yom Kippur. So although it's so peripheral, it's not a mitzvah, it's not even a din, it's only a minhag, and so on and so forth. But spiritually, or as a person, as a human being, embedded in this rehearsal is everything that's going to follow. And therefore, in an interesting kind of a way, the practicing of blowing shofar in the first Rosh Chodesh Elul is Yom Kippur like. Now, no one's going to compare it to Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur, it's very, very, very intense. But Yom Kippur is the end of what the first day of Rosh Chodesh Elul begins. So let's learn about Yom Kippur. Page 96, where the number 4 is. And this I underlined totally. I'm reading what I underlined. Behegdem bir Rabbeinu Hazaken. Let's first explain the Alter Rebbe's interpretation. Behaminag, in the Jewish custom, shetoikim b'yom kippurim, that we blow on Yom Kippur. Acha ne'ilah, at the conclusion of ne'ilah, tekiya achas, one sound. Now notice he uses the word minhag. Blowing shofar Yom Kippur is not like Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah blowing shofar is a mitzvah aseh deiraisa. It's a biblical commandment. Blowing shofar Yom Kippur is not a mitzvah, it's a minhag. At the same time, girls, listen carefully to me. This year Yom Kippur is on Shabbos. And although you wait till after Tesach Yechavim to blow, and on a regular Yom Kippur you could blow from the time of Bein Hashmashas, but you're before Havdalah and you're before Ma'ariv. But it's a custom. So the Alter Rebbe says in Chasidus, I'm reading inside, Shetkiya zu, that the sounding of the shofar at the end of Yom Kippur, it's reminiscent of the sounding of the shofar which is going to be when Mashiach comes. Now what do we know about the sounding of the shofar when Mashiach comes? You want the answer? Nothing. They haven't sent us an advanced script. Right? But I'll tell you something which doesn't say in the Sikha. The Pasuk says a yitoka. When Mashiach comes, the shofar will be yitoka. You know what yitoka means? The shofar will sound itself. No one's going to blow it. Chassidus says Mashiach comes through such a special moment of tshuva that the neshama cries out by itself without the conscious person even wanting to. The shofar cries itself. But there's another thing that Rebbe says. The sounding of the shofar when Mashiach comes is going to be one sound. That's it. A cry. That's all. No 100 sounds and no variety. It says the Rebbe did Tkiyas de Rosh Hashanah, the blowing of the shofar in Rosh Hashanah, Shemea Kiyas is 100 sounds. Or B'kamamine Kiyas is various different types of sound. Tkiyah, Shvarim, Teruah, Hey Shofar Stam. Avalatkiya Hagedayla, the great shofar sound, Shetoikim Besiyum V'Chaisam Hayam and the which we're going to sound at the end of the days of awe. La'acharei Tfilas Ne'ilah, the Yom Kippurim, after we seal the davening of Yom Kippur, Shehitkiya Achas Pshuta, we blow one sound. Harehi Tachlas Ha'ilah Datkiya Shofar, this is the highest level of shofar, Me'ein Atkiya Gadol L'Yasad Lavi, which is reminiscent of the shofar we're going to blow when Mashiach comes. It's the end of Yom Kippur. You're blowing shofar, but you're just shouting. There's no qualification, there's no definition, there's no detail. It's one sound. Because that sound is coming from the very deepest level of the neshama, and the focus here is there's no variety. Go to the next column, again where I underlined. There should be copies around. V'zehu inyan tkiyas. Tkiya achas, sheteikin la'achar tfilas ne'ilah. This is the significance of the one sound we blow at the end of Ne'ilah. She tkiya achas pshuta, it's the simplest of cries. Ki inyana, the idea is, ha-tzaika ha-pnimiyis me'etzem ha-neshama, it's an inner cry from the very essence of the soul. She l'mayle mikol inyan v'tziyas, beyond any kind of idea and form. Afilu, even beyond. Me'atziyur shebetashrat Rosh Hashanah. Even the sounding of the shofar Rosh Hashanah. You see, you have to understand. B'chlal, one of the significance of blowing shofar is that it's not a melody. The shofar is not supposed to be beautiful. It's supposed to be eerie and evocating, evocative. Right? Musical instruments play music. Shofar is not melodic. It's not supposed to be a melody. It's supposed to be a cry. Even the variety, Tkiyah, Shvarim, Teruah, is also cries. Says Rebbe, but the very fact that there are various cries, notwithstanding that none of it is a melody, but it's a various cries, shows on some kind of structure. One simple cry shows that not only it's beyond melody, it's beyond any kind of definition. Shegam zeh alafilu ma'atziyah shebetashrat Rosh Hashanah. It's higher even than the various sounds we make on Rosh Hashanah. This also is called the plain sound, compared to most musical instruments. But Yom Kippur, not only is the shofar not a melody, there's no variety. It's one sound. However, says the Rebbe, to reach the simple cry of Yom Kippur, you have to go through Rosh Hashanah. You don't reach the cry of Yom Kippur unless you had blowing shofar 28 or 29 days in Elul and blowing shofar Rosh Hashanah. You're getting there. So you go through steps. Yom Kippur is a conclusion. It's the highest moment. The neshama is crying out. And the way I'm putting it to you is, the Jew uses Judaism to reach his highest level, and when he reaches the highest level, it's Jew beyond Judaism. That's the cry of the shofar of Matzah Yom Kippur. You get to it only by going through the journey. Page 97, number 5, please. The Yashleima says the Rebbe dezehu dugmas lehislamed. This is also the idea of the practicing to blow shofar the first Rosh Chodesh Elul, which is before anything started. Says the Rebbe as follows: Shideu bedugmas, it's comparable to v'alderach and similar hatkiya achas shatekim b'siyim hu arba'im yom, the one sound we're going to blow on Yom Kippur at the end of the 40 days. U'kafi shareim b'pashtus, as we see in fact, shekasher maschilim l'tkei kedei l'slamed, when somebody blows to practice, when a person, you said you try to practice blowing shofar, what was the first sound you blew? A tkiya, of course. A sound.
The first one, it doesn't smoke out.
But what were you trying to blow? A tkiya. When you blow the first, the Rebbe is implying that the first Rosh Chodesh Elul, you don't blow 10 sounds, you just blow one. And in that sound, there's already envisaged, there's going to be an Elul, there's going to be a Yemei HaSlichis, and there's going to be a Rosh Hashanah, and there's Yemei Tshuva, and then there's going to be Yom Kippur, and we're going to cry again. Before all of this, there's no Judaism, there's just a Jew. I'm outside of Elul, and I'm crying out to the Eibishter, in anticipation of using Judaism to bring myself into the Eibishter sphere. On Yom Kippur, you graduate from it. Says the Rebbe, Kihi Nekudas Inyan Shel Kol HaKeles the Shofar, the sound of the Tchiyah is the point of all the various sounds of the Shofar. Hakel Poshet Shel Amaylam and Me'akeles, it's the simple sound which is higher than the various different sounds. So the Rebbe suggests that the first Rosh Chodesh Elul, you have no obligation to do it, you're volunteering to do it, to practice, or for the sake of chinuch. And he says there's a link between that and the highest moment of Yom Kippur. Why? Because that's the way it works, klal prat klal. And then avoid this like the faith before knowledge as opposed to the faith after knowledge. And in other words, this is the Jew before Judaism. And the Jew before Judaism is linked to the Jew after Judaism. Just like the Jew after Judaism is beyond Yiddishkeit, the Jew before Judaism is very simple, but in that simplicity there's an element of being higher than Yiddishkeit. That's the meaning of the blowing shofar before and the blowing shofar after. In other words, girls, the Rebbe took something so meaningless and made it so incredibly meaningful. What does it mean you blow to practice? You blow because you're choosing to practice. You're volunteering. And the significance of this practice is you're seeing, not just can the sounds come out of this horn, but you're seeing, can I journey from where I am to a oneness with the Eibishter, which is going to be Yom Kippur? And you say yes. And you blow shofar to represent it. That's what's included in that first day. Which automatically answers our question. What do you do on the first day of Rosh Chodesh Elul Shabbos? You missed that practice, right? Go to page 95. Where I made the number 6, the lower left. Second line. The month of Elul has 4 Shabboses, approximately, right? Elul has Shabbos, right? On Shabbos in Elul, you blow shofar? No. Why not? She'ein by kol tkiya, you don't blow. Ubepnimiyas ha'inyan, and Chassidus explains why don't you blow. Moving it's understood. Al pi Rabbi Nazak, and the Rebbe says in Chassidus, B'ha she'ein teikim ben Rosh Hashanah shechaliyas b'Shabbos. For the same reason we don't blow shofar on Shabbos when it falls on Rosh Hashanah on Shabbos. Sha'atam apnimi lekach hu. The real reason we don't blow shofar on Shabbos, which is Rosh Hashanah, is Mipnei Shavayim Shabbos, the day of Shabbos, ain't seirich b'tkiyah shofar. You don't need it. Shabbos does it itself. You blow shofar to make the Eibishter into a king. On Shabbos, the Eibishter is crowned by Shabbos itself. No need to do it. Says the Rebbe, the same is true in the Shofar the first day of Rosh Chodesh Elul. If the first day of Rosh Chodesh Elul is Shabbos, the Eibush blew the Shofar for us. Turn to page 97 now. Second column, please, by the hay, where I underlined all those words. V'apiha now. Says the Rebbe, She'ein hakavona b'teikim l'slamet. What we now know is that the idea of blowing shofar to practice is not hislamdus keisa l'tkei kipshuti, learning how to blow physically, because shezeh yechelam lasas gam lefnei al der chodesh elul can be done before Elul. Elul be'ikir. Why do we blow shofar the first day of Elul? The answer is haschal las ha'in the tzaikas hanshama, the beginning of the neshama's cry. In other words, kel pashat, a simple cry. And this simple cry is on Yom Kippur the deepest, and on the first day of Elul, the purest. Yom Kippur is the end of Avodah, the first day of Elul is the anticipation of Avodah. And the Rebbe therefore says, Yuvan Gam, it will therefore explain to us as well, what do you do on that first day of Elul, the Shabbos? You don't blow shofar. And you don't make up for it on a different day. You say it's enough. It doesn't matter. Why? You cannot physically blow shofar on Shabbos. Nevertheless, the idea of blowing shofar to practice. The spiritual idea of blowing shofar on Shabbos. You're able to. You also need it Shabbos and Shabbos as well. In other words, Shabbos you're not going to blow shofar, but whatever that shofar means, you can do on Shabbos without blowing it. When a Yid serves Hashem, based on the spiritual theme of Shabbos, which is that Shabbos Asi is Tashev, Shabbos is the letters of Tshuva. Skip that line. A Jew reaches the deepest level of his neshama. Shofar has many ideas. One of the many ideas of shofar is tshuva. Shabbos is tshuva. Shabbos is the same letter as the word tashev, which means to return. When the first day of Rosh Chodesh Elul is Shabbos and you cannot physically blow shofar, the answer to it is it's Shabbos. What is Shabbos? Tshuva. And because the answer is it's Shabbos and I can't blow shofar because it's Shabbos, that means to say that Shabbos doesn't push away the shofar, it supplements it, it takes its place. And this is the answer to the question we had at the very beginning of the Sikha. Why? When the first day of Elul is Shabbos, we don't have a practice. The answer is you do have a practice. But you don't have a practice with the physical shofar. You have a spiritual concept of practice. What is the spiritual concept of practice? Sit on that day and visualize what's going to happen between then and Yom Kippur. And the culmination of Yom Kippur, which is the ultimate closeness to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And therefore, although you're physically not blowing shofar, you're spiritually accomplishing the same thing the shofar needs to accomplish. Give me a minute. Last paragraph of the Sikha Girls, page 97, yeah? V'yesh leima, and accordingly the Rebbe adds, the kasher chol aleph the Rosh Chodesh Elul b'yom Shabbos, when the first day of Rosh Chodesh Elul is Shabbos, Shabbos ahanel inyan Rosh Chodesh, as Shabbos is effective for Rosh Chodesh, kein hu l'idach shesgulas hayem the aleph Rosh Chodesh Elul. What is special about the day of the first Rosh Chodesh Elul? When Moshe Rabbeinu went to the mountain, according to one opinion, skip the parenthesis. Ahani, it helps. Sha'tshuva ilah d'shyem Shabbos b'chlal, that the higher tshuva, which happens on Shabbos in general, tiyah be'evanai l'yether, should be on a higher level. What's the Rebbe say? Step number one. When you can't blow shofar because it's Shabbos, you're not missing Shabbos. Shabbos is taking its place. Which means, when you can't blow shofar the first day of Rosh Chodesh Elul, which is Shabbos, Shabbos is doing tshuva for you, right? But remember something else. What we're doing the first day of Rosh Chodesh Elul is going to set the stage for everything that's going to happen in the next 40 days. Because I said to you before, the way I'm teaching it to you, the blowing the shofar the first day of Rosh Chodesh Elul is like the Jew before Judaism, which re-emerges when the Jew is after Judaism on Yom Kippur. So there was to think about it. If the first Rosh Chodesh Elul is a weekday, you're blowing shofar to cry out that Eibishter is the simplest person to set the stage for everything that's going to happen in the next 40 days. When it's Shabbos, you don't do that. Why not? Because Shabbos takes its place. And Shabbos does it on a higher level. So the Rebbe proposes that on those years, that the first day of Rosh Chodesh Elul Shabbos, there's an extra koyach. And that extra koyach, which emerges, which appears on the first day of Rosh Chodesh Elul, affects that your Elul could be different, that your Rosh Hashanah could be different. Everything is affected by whether the first day of Rosh Chodesh Elul is Shabbos or not. And when it's Shabbos and you don't blow shofar, you're not missing the shofar. The Shabbos is supplementing it and doing it even on a higher level. So we learned an Elul Sicha, and it's incredibly timely. How is it timely? Because it reveals what it means to blow shofar Yom Kippur. When you blow shofar Yom Kippur, you're crying, screaming out to the Eibishter. That screaming out to the Eibishter came after 40 days of tshuva. What are you screaming now? You did tshuva 40 days. Was shreiste? And the answer is, my tshuva was very involved. My tshuva was very sophisticated. My tshuva may have been even very effective, but there's still something beyond, and that's the cry of Yom Kippur. Says the Rebbe, just like the shofar of Mat Yom Kippur, the cry of the shofar of Mat Yom Kippur is beyond all of the work. The shofar, the first Rosh Chodesh Elul, is also beyond all the work, in a preliminary way, in an introductory way. And when it's Shabbos, and Shabbos accomplishes it, it affects everything that's going to happen in the following month and 10 days.
It leaves me with the confusion of, it confuses me because then if we're saying it's so, Shabbos is so elevated and the Kedusha that brings Chayach, then why are we saying, oh, but if Yom Kippur is on Shabbos, we're going to blow the shofar?
No, let's listen. Okay, you see, you're asking a question, a technical question, or a philosophical question. Let me rephrase what you're saying. Just like when the first day of Chodesh Elul is Shabbos, we say the Shabbos is doing the cry, so why on Yom Kippur don't we say the same thing? It's a great question. Now, I don't know the answer, other than to observe that obviously they're not identical. Because if they were identical, the same principle would apply. Correct? So I'm not answering you, but I'm just, so to speak, setting the stage. And the way we're going to set the stage is say this. We're comparing the first day of Chodesh Elul Shofar to Yom Kippur, and finding in them transcendence. Simple transcendence at the outset, the deepest transcendence at the conclusion, which makes them similar. At the same time, their similarity breaks down when it comes to the question of Shabbos. Why and what we don't know. But let me just give you a case in point. You probably know how much Chassidus discusses why we don't blow shofar in Rosh Hashanah when it's Shabbos. Agreed? Ever come across the Maimorim? Some of these Maimorim that explain that when Rosh Hashanah is shofar, Hashanah is Shabbos, don't blow shofar, add a very interesting observation. That in the time of the first Beis HaMikdash, when Rosh Hashanah was Shabbos, they did blow shofar. Now make up your mind. If Shabbos takes the place of shofar, so why in the time of the first Beis HaMikdash did they blow shofar? And the answer is there's levels. And that same answer would apply here. Point well taken. It's a very, very on-target observation. But just like in the time of the first Beis HaMikdash, Shabbos did not curtail the shofar. Now it does.